live up to this kind of goods queuing in. Objects in the rearview mirror may be less impressive than they appear. Just to introduce me, as you've heard about me, in these technologically advanced days, and the Vice-Chancellor loves this, you can follow me on Twitter at GSOH31, or if you have any other questions that I don't answer later, you can always directly email me. I prefer that the emails that are complaints or worries about what I've said, and people saying how bad what I've said, are directed to my head of department or head of faculty, rather than to my own personal email address. But the complaints can be addressed to this individual email. Now, what I wanted to do today was to talk about some of the architecture you're going to look at later and that we're going to celebrate in the context of Harlow and its relatively young history, but also in terms of the wider context of some of the challenges regionally and nationally that are before us, especially in terms of housing. So I hope you'll indulge me for just 15 or 20 minutes while I do so. Now, Harlow is being asked to take quite a lot more housing, and it feels like a lot of housing, I think, from various things that people have said. I should say that I'm relatively familiar with Harlow because my wife is from Harlow, so I hope I'm at least an adopted Harlowite in this context, and I can speak from some familiarity, which will mean that Harlow is quite big at the end of the process in 15 to 20 years. And it can feel that process quite worrying, like one might lose something of the Gibbard master plan that we've already heard about, and the design for Harlow that was supposed to be of a peculiar civic community involving direction. If the demolition of existing housing, that's some of it quite old, takes place, and renewal takes place at some of the levels of demand, Harlow could touch 100,000 people. Harlow will be over 90,000 people. Now, for context, that's about the size, a bit bigger than Bath. For context, that's a bit smaller than Chester. Harlow is going to be, if all of the housing development happens, a rather big and rather different place to that which it's been in the past 20 or 30 years. And that can feel like a lot of change at one go and in demand from housing rather than services. Now, I totally understand that because lots of towns and cities throughout, especially southern England, are going through that process now and have done for the past 5 to 10 years. So if we reel back to Harlow as it was supposed to be and how it was early on, and I'll come to some of the parallels with the architecture now in a moment, Harlow is supposed to look like the future. And it was supposed to, in some ways, embody the future. I'm hoping to write another book about visions of the future at some point before I retire, and hopefully I'll make it to that. But Harlow is an example of an embodied and built example of how people imagined the future in the late 1940s and early 1950s. It was to be light, airy, it was to involve movement, possibly in the private motor car, but also, as you know, cycling and walking. And it was to be different from what had gone before. Essentially, the crowded, polluted, poorly designed and poorly housed streets of East and Central London, which had suffered so badly, not just in the Second World War, but were scarred by poverty, overcrowding and ill health. Harlow was to be an escape from this. And in some of the relative successes and failures of Harlow, one can lose sight of just how successful it is in comparison to what it replaced. People who didn't have running water upstairs and downstairs. People who didn't have hot water, which I've just been writing about. People who didn't have a small yard in front of their house and their house opened right out into the streets. And given that our expectations now have risen so far and so fast, it's sometimes difficult to remember Harlow's and all of the new towns' real huge, enormous successes. It was to improve people's lives materially, but also, I think, morally and spiritually. It was to remake the individual and the citizen so that they lived a better life, not only with other people, but with themselves, and felt more of a comfortable place at home in a modernity that was soft, that was green, that was livable. Now, that's going to be, and no one can hide this, problematical if Harlow contains lots more housing. this challenge is not easy, and it's not easy anywhere in the south of England. And I was looking deliberately at the council's plans, and it says very admirable things about the green wedges and fingers that come into the town. In actually quite, if we look at the planning aspects, quite a Scandinavian manner. Harlow, as a planned place, looks to me a lot like Copenhagen, which also has these green slices coming in from each angle. And the council says we're only going to build on this for small-scale development if it's necessary, if we need to replace buildings, and so on. But of course, all of these phrases are rather in the eye of the beholder. What does it mean, small-scale development? There are technical definitions of this, but that's a political decision, isn't it? What is essential infrastructure or necessary replacements? What are the criteria that the roles and functions of the green wedges won't be completely changed? Now that's going to be a challenge for the council and a challenge for its partner councils on every side of Harlow, which is going to need to be faced by all of its citizens and its interested citizens, i.e. you. So it's important to think about this now. What do we really want? Because I'm going to be much more optimistic in the next few slides, don't worry. Because if you build without thinking like that strategically, there will be enormous challenges on the water table, on general practitioner services, which are particularly finding things difficult right now. And there will be a difficulty, I think, with what Gibbard was trying to get away from, with enormous amounts of crowding stress and the feeling that the town had become less green if this wasn't done very well. However, I think this is not just a series of challenges, difficulties, political decisions which are trade-offs and which might not always be 100% easy to make, but it's also an enormous opportunity for Harlow. Because Harlow is a place where there is a young population. I was looking at the social indices. Harlow, of course, Harlow has all sorts of problems like lots of towns and cities have, but it also has enormous amounts of potential. It has young people, it has low levels of social care and dementia needs when we're ageing incredibly rapidly as a society. It's, as I say, its relative social success in its housing stock is quite good. And it means that there's people to do the jobs in a region where economic overheating is potentially the problem, not lack of jobs. Effectively, in this region, there are far too many jobs for the people who need to do them. Harlow has people who can do them, so there is a great opportunity here to make Harlow wealthier and make the region wealthier as well. But that involves building a lot more. I've just drawn out general figures from I think this is England, just England on its own. And if we look at the years since the late 1970s, every single year, even in good times, in England, we have built fewer houses than the family creation replacement level would have needed. So we are running hugely on empty in the last 30 years, below even the explicit family formation level, i.e. families we can see, or households we can see, who are coming to look for housing into the market. Of course, there's lots of hidden demand with younger people living with their parents that we can't see, or other people living in multiple household occupation. So one thing we've not done as a society is build enough, especially in this region and in the region all the way around London. So Harlow has a great civic opportunity, not just economically, but also socially and, if I might say, morally, to add to this stock and to add to the great need that we have now to go forward and to build more housing for our young people. I've got a 2-year-old son, and I'd quite like him to live in a little flat or a masonette. And if we continue along this line, he won't. He'll have to live with me and my wife till he's 40. I'm not sure about this phenomenon. It's great, but also it might not be great for him. So then I went to look at Harlow's numbers of housing. These are absolutely tiny. Housing completions in Harlow itself, of course, within the small barriers of the old Newtown borders, have been really, really tiny until recently. In a town that has its stock relatively ageing and has room to build not only in the town but on the outskirts of the town. So what I'm doing here is drawing our attention to, yes, challenges, but also enormous opportunities to assist the young people who we all want to have somewhere to live, somewhere to work, somewhere to enjoy, somewhere to love, somewhere to settle. Because the consequence of not building enough has been, as you all know, you don't need me to tell you, an enormous rise in house prices, far above the nominal rate of earnings. So I was looking earlier at Harlow figures. Harlow's about 8 times. Harlow house prices are 8 times the median individual earning. Is it Broxbourne, just to the south? It's about 12 times. In Epping, it's 14 times. So essentially, the people, I'm in my early 40s, people 10 years, 15 years below me have got very, very little chance of settling permanently in this growth corridor. Now, that's not a society, I think, that can stand for very long without having enormous stresses put upon it and some of the political forms of populism bubbling up we already see. I can see you're a member of Parliament on the one side, and one secret to the recent general election we've had is an election fought and a politics fought not on your social class, which is almost even Labour, Conservative, UKIP, Lib Dem, but on your age, which essentially the younger you get, the more Labour you are. So this is the successful YouGov polling that got the election almost dead on before the election. So we know this is pretty good. But only 19% of 18 and 19-year-olds voting Conservative. But 69% of over 70s voting Conservative. And it's worth saying that since these figures were taken, 18 to 24-year-olds have continued to go red to the extent where the last poll last week was 71% Labour, and over 65s have continued to go blue. So they're now at 63, 64% blue, higher than they were even in the general election. Essentially, you've got two generations passing each other in two big trains. And if we continue to go along like this, we're going to get to 80, 90% of these age blocks voting Labour and Conservative. And one reason is housing. What's the one thing that young people, these are 18 to 24-year-olds, this is not fantastic reading for Conservatives about young people, but the lowest figure is housing of young people who trust Conservatives, 4%. It's just 4%. 44% to Labour. Now, this is not intended to make a party political point. I'm not a member of a political party. But this is intended to make the point about the housing stress is causing young people's lives to seem very, very difficult. And this region and this city, which might become a city one day, this town, has got a real task on its hands to do something about this. This is a moral duty, I think. Now, the planners of the Greenbelt, I've written about this, I've ploughed through the official papers of the national government on this. They never intended the Greenbelt to be a constraint. They intended the Greenbelt to be something much more flexible than it's become in the 1930s when the London County Council under Labour started to buy up this land and started to zone this land for green belts. They never intended it to be a tight garter. They intended it to be flexible. And the problem we've got at the moment is that it's too hard. Not only that, the economy, having had a heart attack effectively in 2007, 2008, has found it very, very difficult to recover. Although the economy, I think, is out of the emergency room, it's by no means through its convalescence. And we often forget this and think, oh, well, that was 10 years ago. Essentially, our economy had to be defibrillated from its near-death experience. And we are still suffering the economic productivity and house building consequences of that. Private house building, social house building is beginning to rise. It's risen the last 2 or 3 years, but it's got a huge, long way to go. And one of the struggles is that government is finding it very difficult to summon up the bravery, and this will become especially difficult in a hung parliament, to force through some of these changes. I went to look at a very good site called City Geographics. And this is just a look at housing lands, it could be housing lands, within 1 or 2 kilometres of train stations, which are commuter train stations into London, which are in or near the green belt. If we built at maximum density in those small areas with access to retail, with access to train stations, there's probably about 3 million house building plots in the southeast of England available. Harlow and its sub-region is being asked to take, what, 55 to 60,000, which is not a huge slice of potentially the available housing land stock that we could employ if we took what I see as a huge crisis for young people even more seriously than we do now. And we've all got kids, grandchildren, etc., nephews, nieces who are experiencing these difficulties. It will be difficult to do this in Harlow, but it can be done. And it can be done, I think, without challenging the fundamentals of Gibbard's vision. Now, you've got quite a lot of land in I think there are 5 different models in the development plan, and they all vary subtly. You've got Northern Gateway for the motorway, you've got infill and landscape, and you've got environment and landscape or regeneration and landscape. They all essentially involve some building inside Harlow, but also building to its south and west or to its north. In about 10,000 housing unit builds to its north, which actually, to be honest, in terms of the developer, looks to me like it is quite a good mirror of Harlow's inner core. It looks like neighbourhoods, it looks accessible to the north side of the train station, and it looks like you can move into it fairly easily. So I'm going to come to the, don't worry, it's not going to be like a full-on academic lecture, there's no problem with that. I shall not indulge your time much longer. But what would it look like, though, this housing inside Harlow and to its southwest or its northeast and or its north? Well, I think for me, what it would look like, it would be full of colour. There'd be some colour, and there'd be some pale colours, which is Harlow's natural palette from its original development and its small expansions in the 70s. There would be intimacy, and we can see some of this here in Northbrook's masonettes. It would feel a bit modernistic in a kind of 1950s kind of futurology kind of way. It would have a kind of tactility. It would have a kind of brick tactility that you can touch and you can feel and is a bit variegated. And it would have variegation of styles where the brick and the panel and the door were different kind of tactilities. These, it seems to me, are Harlow's design strengths that should not be lost, and also you can build at high density. You don't need blocks to build at 100 people a hectare. You can build masonettes and small houses and narrow 3-storey houses. You don't need to destroy all of the green space. You don't need to fear that. One thing that did occur to me, however, is that I don't think any of these development options really take quite seriously enough how much more public transport you will need via some form of rapid bus transit or even tram, light rail system. Now, the northern development you could probably cycle in and walk in, but from some of the south and eastern developments I think that would be much more problematical. So I think for me, the major unspoken need is public transport. That's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult in this town. But if I speak to the architecture prizes today now, these are the strengths: tactility, colour, openness, frame, ability to see how something is built, variegation, that I think that Harlow can project to the world. It's a face it can show to the world and attract people. And we see it here in two of the residential projects that we're looking at here. Look at the frame. Again, this looks just like the Harlow that's built in the 40s and 70s. Look at the different kinds of colour and the different kinds of material used, and look at the way in which this has got a kind of appeal to Courtyard College, kind of Cambridge College, one of the modern Cambridge colleges, this looks like to me. This is innovating, yes, but also staying with, and you can see the different types of brick and different kinds of concrete as well in the street, staying with what Harlow's got now. And similarly with these are also lovely colours and lovely exposed differential blocks that do something that I think is quite interesting, also in Edmund Street, that one in the middle. Because look at the contrast with what you've already got. That looks, to me, complementary and not clashing. Again, different forms of brick, different forms of panel, small outlet to the street, a real sense in which what you've got is a kind of modernist version of Georgian or Edwardian regularity and form. So you are doing something new, but something that is built upon perhaps the lines of beauty. Similarly, fitting in with the landscape, like the building we're in here, because Harlow is not a very high-built town, and it's a town of relative undulation up a big slope there in the middle, isn't it? Is also, I think, very attractive. And very attractive in these different colours that you don't need much change to evoke, that's a really deep red that actually you don't notice, but you are taking in. And similarly with Tower 1, that development and the Rugby Club, I really like these again as modernistic throwbacks to a view of efficient technocracy that was quite hopeful and was quite forward-thinking and was quite open and transparent and therefore welcoming. These buildings fill one, I think, at least in design and fly-through, with a sense of well-being, actually, not to get too highfalutin about it. So to finish, these blocks look a lot like Gibbard's original vision. They don't, I think, seem alien. And that's one of the ways in which we can meet this challenge of having to build an enormous new amount while maintaining the character and some of the thrust of what some of you have lived in for a very long time. Gibbard never designed in the master plan that he wouldn't change. And he actually says, you know, this will, when we've gone, and when I've gone, and when you've gone, this will change. This will be transformed. This is a painting that will be filled in with other hands around the edges and in its colour and shade. And modernity is designed to be buckled and transformed. It's not designed to stay static. He wouldn't have wanted that. He'd have wanted you to think about the ways in which you can adapt to the new challenges that you face, just like the challenges he faced, which was to draw on the villages and towns around you and say, how can we make the feeling of these interconnected churches and villages and fields in a modernistic town? Well, the choice and challenge before us today is to do that again and to think about how this initial set of palettes and tactilities and interactions and movements can now be remade when we do face a real emergency of needing tens of thousands of new houses in this sub-region pretty much immediately. So I think I'll end there because I think I've probably used up my oxygen in the room, but I will hopefully take some questions and I will be helpful to you in that mode. Thank you.